Vehrs, my wife Christine Vehrs. Took my first geology course from Tom Loudon in 1964. And the rest of my career I benefited from that association. And what we have today is the result of knowing Tom Loudon. We were welcomed into the house with Sue and the family, and in the subsequent years we've had lots of opportunities to cross paths in Colorado, in Santiago, in New Mexico, and other places. So we've got lots of, certainly he's a person that was very important to ourselves and to many students of that period of time. He didn't stop at the classroom. He took a much broader role in being a mentor, if you will. Not always a good mentor, but being there for you, huh? And I don't remember all the details, but one of the stories I'd remember was there was always lots of trips. And each trip was an adventure. And sometimes they were in old Buicks, as I recall. And we had gone to, I think it was Nashville, for a scientific meeting. And this would have been 1965 or thereabouts. And I don't remember all the details, but the gist of it was that time we got there, we were tired, and maybe we had a beer or two, and it was cold, and the car ended up being backed up to the building, and right near the intake zone for their ventilation, well, it was cold, so we had to start the car. We were sleeping in the car, and pretty soon the whole building was being evacuated because of the carbon. One more story, huh? So
this is the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville, the Grand Ole Opry.
That's probably what it was. But that was just the start of the stories, and I think our lifetimes have been full of those stories, and we appreciated the visits of Tom and Sue in Santiago, where we lived for a period of time. And so we're all going to miss him. He's an important part of our lives and everybody else's lives. So here's to Tom.
I'm the other half of this family. My involvement with the Loudon family started down in Madison. I had gone there and I took a class from Lowell and enjoyed it, and thought that was enough of that. I was going to be a math teacher anyhow, and was told by him that I had to take at least 2 years because I would either end up loving geology or I would hate it so much I'd never look at another rock. What he forgot to mention was that I might hate it, but I'd end up married to a geologist, which happened when I ran out of money at Madison. I had to work, and I ended up at Oshkosh. And I took my next couple of classes from TS, and I was fortunate enough to be on the '69 field trip with Kathy. And one of my best memories is we pulled into Canmore, Canada, and it was time to set up camp, and I get out my little tent, and I said to go, and Kathy's going, no, not yet, not yet. And I'm looking at her like, what's the matter? I'm going to set up my tent. She said, no, not yet, not yet. And so we're kind of standing around, and we waited until T.S. had set up his tent, and then she looked at me and she says, okay, go to the other side of the campgrounds because he's going to snore. And she was right. Cannot pass this. I know all of us must have stories. T.S. was just too much of a character not to have good stories.
Well, I'll start off by saying, how many remember that burgundy and white Buick? How many remember pushing out of a ditch or getting out of some other kind of trouble?
There's a couple of pictures in the front.
And you probably noticed the picture up there. Actually, that was from a field camp I was on where he forgot to put it in park, and it rolled down the hill on top of the wood pile at Jasper, and it took the students about an hour and a half to get that car off the top of that 3-foot wood pile. So, that car either was his best friend or had the fear of God, and every time he approached it with an ignition key, I don't know if it did. But my name's Dave Gruber. I was on the field camp in '71 and taught as a TA in '72. And some of the greatest time of my life, I gotta say. And got to meet the whole Loudon family, which was a real treat. And also at school, it was just a great time. I had Doc in sedimentology, and actually my only other course was field camp as a junior. So I went out there and I found out the things that Mr. McKnight would teach me, Labarge, Cargus, all those teachers kind of came together at that field camp, and it all made sense. It was great, and so I got a real appreciation of geology on that field camp. I also learned that sardines came in cans, that you could eat 3-week-old unrefrigerated bacon, and just all you had to do was scrape off the mold and the maggots and then dip it in the water and put it in the pan. And actually I got to eat a lot of bacon because a lot of people didn't want to do that for some reason. Tom and Sue loved to play bridge, and Tom did teach, gave me the quick unabridged lesson on how to play bridge in one lesson, and then proceeded to take all my money on that field trip. So I had a great time, and then the next year came around and I re-upped again to be his TA this time, and out we went again, and another great experience this time. I didn't have to do the work, I just made students go around and do it all, and he and I went fishing. And so that was a good time. One of my greatest fishing memories is I just sent the students off on Athabasca. It was the Athabasca River, and we went down to the river and we parted. We were going to go opposite ways down the stream, and we had gone about 20 yards, and a grizzly comes out of the woods, walks right in between us on the river. So from here to that water out there, there's a bear in between us, and I remember Tom and I just looking at each other and going, so there were a lot of bear stories actually on that trip. But then my second memory on that trip was Sue helping this time to teach me bridge. And so she did that, and again, lost all my money. But what I really want to tell you about is a phone call I had. And it involves Tom, and I gotta say he's a great friend. We lost kind of touch here and then, but even in the out life, he'd come over. I'd had a croquet tournament in Michigan, and he'd make the trip with Sue once in a while and attend that trip, and he'd always show up in his Queen Elizabeth tie with his bowler derby and his white gloves, and we'd play croquet. But that's neither here nor there. So anyway, after teaching that field camp, I had one of those things in life where I was 24 in the lottery for the military service. Vietnam War was going on, so I was off to school. So Doc, he and McKee convinced me that I needed to go to officer candidate school. That was where I belonged. And I figured it was either that or going to Canada, so I went to officer candidate school. And got down to Fort Leonard Wood, did my basic training, and that ended. I came home and went to a party my wife, I happened to be engaged, and my wife was going to school in Oshkosh as well. So I came up and visited, saw Doc, and he had a great time, went to one of his famous Wapatuli parties, and off I went back to the service. Well, I ended up in Fort Sill, and the Vietnam War ended, so they sent me home. And so my great career was 3 months in the military service, but I was fulfilled the rest of it in Army Reserve. But nonetheless, I came home, and we'll get to the phone call. But I remember going to come up to visit my now wife of 42 years, and walk into Harrington Hall, and I'm looking at the bulletin board, figuring out what I'm going to do for my life. And I see there's a job for working for the DNR, and there was a mining salesman job, and I registered all that and said, well, maybe that's something I could do. So I go walking down to the break room, and I walk in, and there's TS sitting there all by himself, and he's got this gallon jar of pickles, hot pickles, and he's eating them. And Gruber, he says, I thought you were in the Army. And I said, well, not anymore. And so he has me sit down, and we sat there, and God, I don't know how many pickles we ate, but we just talking and doing that, and finally decided we need a cigar. So you could do that in those days. So we went to his office, had a cigar, and he says to me, well, what are you going to do? And I said, what do you mean? I don't know, I guess I'm going to find a job. And he said, well, you mean you're not going to graduate school? And I really never thought about it. You know, I don't have the money and that. And he says, hold on a second. And this got through. He turns around, picks up the phone, makes a call, and he's going, okay, hangs up. You'll be, oh no, the parting words were, you'll be there on Monday. This was on Friday, okay? And so I said, well, wow, where am I going? And he goes, well, you're going down to see Richard Paul at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. And I said, I am. And he says, yeah. And he says, you know, your GREs suck, and but you're a good workhorse, and he needs someone to work on this thesis area in Idaho. So go down and talk to him. So I went down to talk to him, and sure enough, well, that's another story in itself, but long story short, I accepted a research position, research assistantship. This is how it happens nowadays too, I bet. But I accepted a research assistantship and went out to Idaho, and TS showed me to the bus, and Paul showed me, gave me the ride. So there's two very influential men in my life, and cut me a great break, and made me what I am today. I had a great career, and I thank him for it. He was a great mentor and a great guy, a great family.